Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So, there's some more things I've connected here to the Marissa case. One is that one of the victims in the fireworks explosion that I definitively have connected to this case, his name was Joel Mendoza, right? And the suspect in the Marissa Dinapoli case, his name was Martin Mendoza. Also, it turns out that she was adopted from the foster care system. She was one of 8 siblings. She graduated high school recently. And this may come up later, so I'm going to go ahead and put this in this video. Also, a police officer who gave a statement about it on behalf of the department, his name was Mario Ramirez. And if you've been paying attention to my videos in this playlist, and I'll put the link to the playlist in the description, you know that I've pointed out that Tara Romero had Ram scrambled in her name. Marissa, okay, has Ram scrambled in her name. Monice Ramirez, right? Tara Romero was a victim in Morgan Hill in the past. There haven't been many female homicide victims. So was Sierra Lamar. She had Ram scrambled. So here, Mario Ramirez, Mario has Ram scrambled in it, and Ramirez has Ram scrambled in it, and Monice Ramirez, her sister, okay, she also has the last name Ramirez. So you have 2 Ramirez on this case, and you have the Mendoza last name connection. I've been talking about the book of Joel recently, just a little bit, where I talk about how it says that the land is like the Garden of Eden on the day of the Lord before them, and then after the horsemen ride through, it's like and the army comes through, it's like a desert behind them, spiritually speaking. Also, there's some really appalling connections in this case as well, when we're talking about the fireworks explosion connection in Yolo County, right? The fireworks explosion connection. Okay, so the name of the reporter is Becca, right? B.C. Ace, Ha Baker, okay, which is Ha Be Care, scrambled, right? A play on words for Be Core. So you're saying, Ha, they want me to, seem like the Baphomet, the Ram, Mars. Again, Mars is Greek equivalent is Ares, A-R-E-S, which is like the Igbo word for the son of God, Eri. And there's other connections as well. For those of you who are confused about how the Igbo tribe is connected to the Catholic Church, again, okay, in the Igbo tribe you have the son of God and you have witchcraft, which is called juju. And Jupiter and Juno are Zeus and Hera's equivalent in the Roman mythology. Now also you have the Roman Catholic Church, and you have Santeria and voodoo and hoodoo, and they are connected to what, Santeria basically is based on Catholic teachings and West African witchcraft combined, okay, and kind of is being guided by Western occultists in the church and otherwise. And voodoo basically comes from West Africa in a nutshell. So the West Africans were responding to the Royal African Falcon Martial Art Order, right? And so was the Catholic Church and the people during the slave trade. So a lot of that stuff came to the Americas in the transatlantic slave trade. It goes back to manifest destiny, right? Manifest destiny, right? And the ships manifest the ship's cargo. So you have a lot of people who are like mad that that God chose somebody who's different from them, right? And it's interesting that in the case in Morgan Hill, her family accuses them, or some of her family accuses the Morgan Hill police of having or taking part in systemic bias, prejudice, racism, and that they felt that the case was delayed because she is somebody who is a person of color. Now, in my case, right, in the PSYOP, the Morgan Hill Police Department, they're out there turning a blind eye. They've probably been told to stand down, maybe even by the Secretary of the State or the White House or the FBI or whoever. And it's absolutely connected to, okay, racism, right? White supremacy, Jewish supremacy, LGBT supremacy. But I don't perceive the Morgan Hill Police Department as the individual police officers to be that racist, but I do perceive them to uphold white supremacy. We had a run-in over there at Paradise Park where the police showed up because I used to make videos there, and I covertly recorded that. I'm going to try to find that recording and put it into this playlist. And so, when they realized I was recording, they started, being more polite, what have you. But they were kind of trying to press me about it, right? These officers that showed up. First of all, they parked. There was like 4 or 5 of them or something, and they kind of walked up, and they started, asking me why I come to the park, right? And of course, it's a public park, what have you. And they said that some people had complained, saying that I come there all the time, and since there's a school right by the park, that they were concerned, what have you. And I do make videos, and I've made videos where I raise my voice slightly out loud at the park. So, it was somewhat understandable, but it was almost certainly an excuse to press me on behalf of the people running the psychological operations. As part of what they're doing is they try to intimidate me, right? And so you could tell that the person was like really trying to get a response from me initially. Then they started singing a different tune, so to speak, when he saw me press the record button on the phone. Okay, and he tries to play me out a little bit, saying, you come here all the time. And the reason why I go there all the time, historically, I don't go there anymore, because when they paved the road, it messes up my car, and that's part of it too, right? The new pavement they have out there, this black pavement that they use these days, I don't know what it does to other cars. It messes up my car's traction and causes lights to go off and so on and so forth, and it's messed up the braking system, and it's done stuff like this. Okay, and when I go to the shop, it's like they don't know what's wrong with it, right? And they charge me all kinds of money. Last time I was there, they charged me, I got my battery replaced too. They charged me $1,600, and they just replaced the sway bar and the batteries, and they did a bunch of tests, and they said they couldn't figure out what's wrong with it. And they said that, when it comes to the advanced track, that they think a sensor is the problem, and they will cost $2,000. I'm like, whoa, this is kind of, a used car. I bought it used with 30,000 miles on it. Has like, I want to say like, let me check here. It says right here, I think it has 130,000 miles on it. And, I'd rather get a new car than spend thousands of dollars repairing it. So it put me in a kind of bad situation there. I had to make that kind of call. And that has something to do with them remotely hacking the car as well. So that's a part of this. But again, I'm kind of getting off topic here. Let me explain it like this here, because when it comes to this, is a very interesting topic. I've written about it a lot. I have a lot of papers I've written about, things that related to psychology and thinking and people's states of being. So and I don't have a degree in psychology, but I've done a lot of research into mental health. So let me talk about the layers of the spirits of oppression and wrap this video up. Let's try to keep this short here. So I have a bunch of points here. Okay. So point number 1, the first layer that people commonly see are people in cars and traffic and what we associate with them, right? So when we look at things in terms of the spirit of America, which I'm going to prove definitively here is also a spirit of evil and oppression. No offense to anybody, okay? If your country is in the wrong spirit, you should want to change it. You shouldn't just try to defend it no matter what. It's kind of the difference between Martin Luther King and a conservative, or Jesus in the Bible is a character in the Bible. It's based on the top martial arts ever possible, based on me, and the Romans or the Pharisees, who were conservatives in their own right. Okay. When I say liberal, I don't mean people want trannies in sports and gender-neutral bathrooms and people want everyone to be gay. I mean people who have an open mind, people who want to have fair discussions, people who believe in individual rights. Okay. So again, the first layer of the American spirit that people commonly see are people in cars and traffic and what we associate with them. The second layer is the military, police, and the government, etc. The third layer is the American flag, which has 12 main associations as well as others. The first main association is the devil, right? It's the dominant association, dominant characteristic. We'll get to that. You'll see that I'm right. The second is hell in general. The third is wickedness. The fourth is hate. The fifth is hostility. The sixth is homosexuality. The seventh is sadism. The eighth is forcible rape. The ninth is frustration. The 10th is cruelty. The 11th is a fanatically unreasonable component to the spirit. The 12th is disassociation. The 13th is ugliness. The 14th is confusion. The 15th is depravity. The 16th is shallowness. The 17th is stupidity. The 18th is liars. 19th in maturity, 20th superficial, artificial behavior, and more. Okay, let's stop here for a second. I know I'm doing a bad job here to some degree. They're feeling me, but you should understand that I'm right if you have to read it in the annotations here. So why is the devil associated with the American flag? Well, why the devil? Why hell? Why wickedness? Why hate? Why hostility? Why are those the first five? Now let's think about what I said was the first layer that we see of the American spirit. People in traffic, right? So when you see people in traffic, you often think ruthlessness. You know, you might get in a car accident. If you're crossing the street, you might get hit by a car. There's a certain ruthlessness you feel when you cross the street in the city. That's not just the nature of driving, it's that too, but it's also the American spirit, right? It's mixed with the types of cars they have, right? Chevys, Fords, the foreign cars you like to drive in America, you know, that are characteristic of American traffic. But we also think of crony capitalism and a dog-eat-dog society, right? Corporate ruthlessness, gangsters, right? Indifference, selfishness. So the American spirit, right? The American flag, the spirit. First and foremost, the main characteristic is the devil. Now, let me just end by saying this because they're feeling me a lot more. I wanted to really get into this deep here. Think about what would happen if you try to tell the truth. If you said, hey, you know, you said to a bunch of soldiers, a bunch of angry military soldiers who are doing a flag ceremony, they just got finished. You said, you know, it's one nation under God. If Jesus was black, would you obey him? And so they look at you really hard. Why are you asking us that, right? And they act disassociated. They look at you very hard and with a very ruthless American military look. Okay, and there's a sort of darkness in their air, in the air, a sort of darkness in their spirit. Okay, that kind of psyop look, that kind of look, is dominated by the core component of the principle of evil, which is the devil himself. So the core component of the flag is the devil. Oh man, you know, there's a lot of reasons I'm right about this. Okay, there's a lot of reasons. Think about the government. People say the government is satanic. When you hear that, what do you think? Right? You think about institutional evil, right? You think about politicians and their indifference and their greed. Okay? Now the government gives orders to the military. Now what is controlling the government, right? There's rich people. Now what's controlling rich people? Greed and evil. So what is controlling evil is the devil, right? It's the core character, the dominant characteristic of evil is the devil, and the dominant characteristic of the flag is evil, and the dominant characteristic of evil is the devil. Even has the word evil in it, and it's de-evil, the military, right? You think a lot of toxic masculinity, right? De-evil. Now, in a lot of these videos, I've come across guys wearing various hats, right? The recent one that they released today or yesterday about the Yolo County explosions, the person was wearing a military hat. And I pointed out before, in one of these videos, the person was wearing an Olympics hat. And there's this kid wearing a shirt of the Golden State Warriors. And so they're kind of connecting this stuff here, right? The Olympics goes back to Mount Olympus and Zeus, who's a deity of rape, who changes form, right? The rape of Europa. And there's so many connections. So I'm going over a lot of the same things here to help you understand the pattern. But I know a lot of connections here, you know, but I'm trying to give you the kind of core connections. Just like the American flag, I could talk about, you know, ritual madness and the continuity of white supremacy and their insistence on white supremacy and how it's associated with the flag and slave masters and frats of old and lynch mobs and a wicked group effort and control freaks and military types and psychopaths and a lack of humanity and slavery, okay, and the native genocide and narcissism and greed and Greco-Roman mythology and Greek societies and Greek frats and all these connections to the flag. American flag movie. That's going to be American Pie movie. The American Woman song by Lenny Kravitz. I could point to a lot of connections. Sex, drugs, and rock and roll. People saying they built the city on rock and roll. And military people saying let's rock and roll. Now they're making it very hard for me to talk. Because, you know, again, to me, the American flag also has a very immature component. Very immature. Because I'm trying to make these videos. These people are so sensitive to the thought that someone would correct them with the spirit of righteousness that they're feeling me acting like frat boys, acting like very immature military hazing punks. But it's very important that you understand that why Marissa Dinapoli was killed is because the American spirit is evil and the devil controls it. So, you know, when things, you know, say like the beach, why did the sand end up on the beach? Why is it so beautiful on the beach? Why the waves? Why the seagulls at Santa Cruz, you know, by Westcliff? Why are all these connections? Why are these things coming together? Because there's a force, there's a driving force, a prevailing tendency, a dominant characteristic. And so it is with evil, which is the American spirit. So why did they treat the case the way they did? Because racism is a part of the greater category of evil. If you're going to be evil in America, right, you're going to add the racism, the sadism. You're going to add rape and murder and drugging and playing stupid, idolatry, right? Satanism is about connecting all those things and living all those things and insisting all those things and breaking into different groups and having different cult heads of those groups who represent different components: lust, greed, gluttony, evil, murder, senseless violence, and so on.